Okay, fine, fine. Fine. So, again, a very good morning to everyone present here, and I would like to thank all the coordinator for inviting me into this particular one-day workshop. And let's start. I know students are involved, and as this is the first module that we're looking into, and Dr. Kanak has asked me to prepare a presentation on kind of introduction to machine learning, so that the subsequent session they can jump into the core field that they are looking in. So here I'll be discussing on the in particularly what is machine learning and the different classes that we have under machine learning, or different categories that we have under machine learning. So without further delay, we can start. And I would like to acknowledge here MATLAB also, because we recently collaborated with MATLAB with licensed MATLAB version, and they have really shared a valuable book with about machine learning, which I thought that would be appropriate for this particular platform to to introduce. And so, what is machine learning? So, as you can see here, the machine learning that teaches computer to do what comes naturally to the human or animal, and that is from the learning experience that we are looking into. And machine learning algorithm use computational methods to learn the information that they will have as data as the input, and they will not rely on a predetermined equation of the model that is existing. So the algorithm can do kind of adaptation on that itself, with the kind of they will improve the performance as the number of samples that are available in the process of learning. If that is increasing, then the performance also, you can see, that also will increase, because the learning process will increase. So this is what we are looking into, and in a layman way, if I say machine learning is somewhere, we can say we are making a computer to learn, or making it AI enabled. Somewhere we are trying to make it as a intelligent kind of a when we're talking about a device, so AI enabled. So we are making it intelligent. If you are talking a robot or something, while making it is intelligent, and in that process of that, the set of learning, the algorithm that will follow, or the data that are available. So from the data only, it will try to learn, and it will try to act, and then it will improve. So coming into, like, if I say in particularly towards like a real world kind of application, or we say more data, like more questions, or in that particular better answer we will get. So machine learning algorithm that find natural pattern in the data, that generate insight and help us to make better kind of a decision or prediction. They are used every day to make critical decision in medical diagnosis, let's say stock trading, if we take to energy load forecasting also in that field, and in many more area. So like media that sites rely on machine learning to sift through millions of options to give us a song or movie that they do kind of a recommendation. So if you just open your YouTube, and if you are playing a video, then as soon as it try to get finished, you will be getting more option in that same line of it. That's where they are predicting the your interest of listening to the music, and the other option will be the next option will be available to you in the foreign. So that's where this is coming in the real kind of a world application. And here also few of the thing that I have mentioned, like computational finance for credit scoring algorithm, trading, then image processing, the computer vision that we're looking for facial recognition, motion detection, object detection. Then you're taking this computational biology or genetic sequence modeling and other thing. You can take it to the healthcare kind of application. somewhere in the energy production for price and load forecasting. In automotive industry also, you know how it is, like the application is coming to aerospace, manufacturing, and kind of predictive maintenance in where. And moreover, there are a lot of applications that are going on in language, natural language processing. So these are a few of the area that you can think of. Even though there are a lot of other multidisciplinary area where it is like this AI and ML is coming in a kind of in a giant manner. So again, how this ML works in particularly when we're talking about machine learning. So can we like classify the technique into two groups? So if we do that, we have here is unsupervised learning, supervised learning. So we'll come to what is supervised and unsupervised in the frequent slide to come. So if you see in a particular, like we're just segregating it into two parts, and when we're talking about unsupervised, somewhere clustering, and when we're talking about supervised learning, we're talking about classification and regression. I'll be coming to that, so I'll be not um, much about now what is supervised and unsupervised. We'll be discussing that. So now just take a like supervised case. As we discuss, there are like two categories, two different techniques that we're looking into under machine learning, supervised and unsupervised. So let's start with supervised learning, or just take an example of supervised, where the idea is to predict the heart attack, prediction of heart attack, and in like cardiovascular, in few condition, how if you can predict before the heart attack, then you can save a life. So the aim of this supervised machine learning is to build a model that makes prediction based on the evidence, in the presence of uncertainty kind of thing, because we do not know what is coming. And a supervised learning algorithm takes a known set of input data and and known response to the data. So here what we're talking about when we have a machine, the input. So when we're talking about supervised, so it is known, and the output what we are expecting here is also kind of known. And then we train a model. So now we are training here, the train a model, this model, this AI or ML that we're talking about, to generate a responsible prediction to the new like test data. So now if I'll send some test data or new data, so for this test data, it should able to generate appropriate or reasonable response, or when we are showing prediction, so it should able to generate prediction for appropriate prediction for this test data. So this supervised learning case, you just as we talk about supervised, so here we're talking about basically the classification technique and the regression technique. So one is the classification, regression. So under classification, that predict kind of discrete responses. For the example, where an email is genuine or kind of spam, or whether a tumor is cancerous or just benign cancer, or classification of model, just to classify input data into different category, or typical application where it includes medical imaging or speech recognition. That's where when we're doing some kind of a classification thing, then we're talking about the classification problem. And regression, where to predict continuous response, like changes in temperature or fluctuation in the power demand, where the output that we have is a kind of a continuous value. So here when we set classification, then somewhere discrete, and when we are talking about regression, then continuous output, or that response that we're looking into. Now, just as we're talking about the supervised learning to predict heart attack, so suppose the physicians want to predict whether someone will have a heart attack within a year or not. Like here, we're trying to predict within 1 year whether he'll be having heart attack or not. So they have data on the previous patient, including what they have, age, weight, then they might be having the height, they might be having the blood, BP, blood pressure, and heart rate related activity, let's say ECG record also they have. And so they know whether the previous person had heart attack within a year or not. So the problem is combining the existing data. So now these are the existing data of the same subject, and now the data into a model that can predict whether the person will have a heart attack in a year or not. So taking the previous data into account, now you are making a model, or now you are building a model, taking this into the ML, like you are making the algorithm to learn about the existing data, and then with the existing data, with the variation of the data, you are trying to predict whether within a year the person will be still normal or can go for a heart attack. So that kind of prediction can be done. Now just take another case of unsupervised learning, as earlier we have shown the clustering approach under unsupervised. So this unsupervised learning finds hidden kind of pattern, or intrinsic or hidden pattern, or structure in kind of a data that we look for, and it used to draw kind of inferences from the data set consisting of the input data without labeling them. So earlier case, when we talk about a supervised case, another thing is labeling, or we are making the label data. Yeah, you are making label data, but in this case it is you are not doing any label data. Without any labeled responses. So this particular application, like one of the case clustering, is you can say one of the most common unsupervised learning technique. It used for exploratory data analysis to find different hidden pattern uh, and somewhere, or grouping of data, grouping in data. So either we can go for this clustering, you apply the clustering technique towards pattern recognition, hidden pattern recognition, or grouping of data, like as you can see the grouping of data also, or somewhere in the so the application of this clustering, it can include gene sequence analysis, uh, the application part, gene sequence analysis, then market research also you can think of. And then we can have object recognition, like you can take an example in the case where in the industry there are different objects they are lying, or different product that are lying, and you want to do the classification, and a robot is basically assigned to perform the work. So he is able to identify the different object with the input feature they have, and then they can do the classification. So this is one thing. Then going ahead with this, how do we decide which algorithm to use? That is the most common kind of a kind of a problem, or the thought that comes into our mind, like you might be thinking, I'm working in in mechanical domain, and we have data different, different data with different pattern and different, for different application. So where to start now and how to start? So that are very common kind of a thing that might be coming into your mind. So like selection of this right algorithm can seem overwhelming. There are dozen of supervised and unsupervised machine learning, the algorithm that are coming up. If you see here, supervised, that we have classification based problem. If the problem is with classification or regression, then we can, if it is under classification, we can go for support vector machine, discriminant analysis, neighbors, nearest neighbor. If it is a problem with regression, we can go for linear regression model, then a generalized learning model, then support vector regression, Gaussian process regression, assemble methods, decision tree, a natural network. So there are, if you see, similarly for unsupervised, you have again k-mean, k-medioid, then fuzzy k-means, then you have Gaussian mixture, a lot of things. So how to do that? So there is like I can say there is no best method, no best method, or you can say one size fit all. So like there is no best method, or like there is no method which will fit to all kind of thing. So finding the right algorithm is partly just we can say uh, trial and error. But this trial and error will come unless and until you know the the different cases, the different categories which is being shown over here. So, and what else you need to have, just by trial and error, somebody, if we are not known to the input data, the data he's working on, or the size, when we're talking about the data, so the size, then or insight of the data, how it is being acquired. So if that information is not clear, not clear, then it is very difficult to just say by trial and error method I will find a best method. So we need to understand about the data that we are handling or that we have before going into a particular application, or before selection of this, any of the method. So that's why you need to be clear on what data you are handling, or what you are planning to do. So I can go ahead, like when, like in particular, when should we use machine learning? So that also comes into play. Like consider using machine learning when you have a complex task, or let's say a problem, involving large amount of data or lots of variable, but no kind of existing formula, as I say, or equation. For example, machine learning, as we say, is a good option if we need to handle situation like the first case here. What we are looking into is a problem like face recognition, face recognition, or somewhere we can take it as speech recognition also. Then the second case, where the rule of the tasks are not constant by changing. So here this is a case where fraud detection. You must be knowing the like the cyber crime that are happening, or the fraud that are going on in the banking sector, or there are a lot of things that are happening. So that's where also a prediction or kind of a detection model you can think of. Somewhere then where you see the nature of the data, keeps changing. As you see here, the nature of the data keeps changing, and the program needs to adapt as in automated kind of trading or energy demanding forecasting kind of thing. Somewhere you can relate to this as kind of prediction, shopping trend, shopping trends, market analysis that we talk about, then energy demand, where there is like uh, the data is always keep changing. No, in those cases, like the application that we're talking about, first, second, and third, in all cases, we can think of applying ML. And whether or not we can able to succeed or not, that is different case, but the ML can play a vital role in cases like that. And now just take about some real world application, as you can see in the first case, where creating algorithm that can analyze works of art. So researcher at art and this artificial intelligence laboratory at Rutgers, in a particular university, they wanted to see whether a computer algorithm, could able to classify painting by style, by a kind of generic, or by some artist as easily as a kind of like a human kind of prediction can, whether a computer can do or not. So they began by identifying visual features for classification of painting style. So this particular algorithm they developed classified the styles of the painting in a database with about 60% accuracy, and outperforming the typical kind of non-expert human. But somewhere the researcher hypothesized that the visual feature useful for style classification. So the style classification falls under the supervised learning problem, and could also use to determine the artistic influences. So when we're talking about artistic influences, it can be unsupervised problem. So training a model can be developed on the Google Images over the period of 500 plus year, and with 1700 painting and with different artists, and then they could able to connect the influence among the art that are there, and the relationship between that and the artist from the same kind of generic they have evolved. So that's why that is possibility is there. And the second case is the optimizing the HVAC, like that is where we say the heating, ventilation and air conditioning system for energy usage in large building. So, so in like offices, building, in hospital, or in a other large scale, commercial building, are often inefficient because they do not take into account changing the this uh, uh, whether patterns or variable energy cost, or you can think of building thermal properties. So building IQ's cloud-based software platform can addresses this such problem. And this cloud-based platform that we're talking about, this platform uses advanced algorithm or machine learning methods to continuously process gigabytes of information from power meters, thermometer, or this HVAC, which we are talking about, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system, pressure sensor, as well as weather and energy cost. So in particular, this machine learning is used to segment data and determine the relative contribution of gas, electric, steam, solar power of heating and cooling processes. So in that process, you can able to save or optimize, that we are talking about the optimization, optimize the building consumption related cost and other thing to 10 to 25% of the normal operation. So that's where the ML will play vital role. And another real life example is this third case, where detecting low speed car crashes, where within more than 8 million member, the RAC is one of the UK's largest motoring organizations, providing roadside assistance. Again, insurance also they are providing, and other services to private and business motorists. So to enable the rapid response to the roadside accident, to reduce the crashes or mitigate the insurance cost, this the company, the RAC, developed onboard crash sensing system that uses advanced machine learning algorithm to detect low speed collisions and distinguish their event from more common driving events, such as driving over speed bumps or potholes, or other cases. And independent tests that shows that the RAC system to be 92% accurate in detecting the test crashes. So in that case, again, the ML can be a good tool or a way for kind of predicting or detection of the car crash. So going further, again, there will be again, you must be thinking about the question that to be considered before you start. The same thing as I was discussing earlier to the slide, like where to start and where to begin. So in that case also, as machine learning in a simple manner, supervised, unsupervised, then the under supervised, the regression and the classification. But again, uh, the same thing will come into play. First is like what kind of data are they working with, and insight of the data, that you should be knowing about the data, and how and where those insights to be applied, like the application part. So where we are going to apply. So all that question, if you are clear with or you have the answer about the data, or clarity on the data, and more clarity on the availability or the feature or the data with, and where we are going to apply, then it will help you to whether to go with supervised or to unsupervised, or if you have selected supervised, whether to select regression or classification. So that is in a just in a shorter way I thought of. Then workflow, okay, then you have selected to go for supervised, let's say. Then what you will do, how you will process the data. So assess and load the data, the first thing that you will do. Then pre-process the data. You all be knowing about the pre-processing of the data, or curation of the data, or labeling of the data, whatever thing you will do in the pre-processment. Derive the feature using the pre-processed data, feature extraction kind of a thing. Then train the model using the feature derived here. So that feature will be taking and you will be training. Then iterate to find the best model. So you will be performing the iteration to find out which will be the best model. Then integrate the best trained model into the production system, like the final application when we're talking about, let's say, the mobile app or anything, or a application, then implementing that to your production system. So that is what a workflow, you can say at a glance. Next is like training a model to classify physical activities. When we talk about, normally this thing will come into your picture, like how to do training, and for any kind of physical activity, like let's say taking a example of a physical activity, and this example is based on cell phone health monitoring, LF. This is we call like cell phone health monitoring app, what we have here. And The input consists of three axial sensor data from the phone, the accelerometer and the gyroscope. The responses or the output are activities performed, that is walking, uh, standing, sleeping, sitting, and climbing, kind of climbing the stair. So these are the output or the outcomes that we are talking about. The or the sometimes we say the responses. And what we have is the input that are coming is from, as I said, three axial sensors from the phone, which is accelerometer and gyroscope. So from that, the input that are coming and the output will be that. So we want to use the input data to train a classification model. So now the input data we are taking, and now using this ML, we want to train a model to identify these activities. Which activities? The output activities. We need to identify whether based on the input data, whether the physical activity this person is, whether just standing or sleeping. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 activities performing. So based on this input, whether he's performing the fourth activity, fifth activity, or second activity, to be that should be our goal. Since our goal is to do a classification, so this is what we are doing, classification, because we are predicting or we are classifying different activity. So when we are talking about classification of different responses that we are looking into, so we are doing the supervised learning. So now you see the selection of the training a model. So what we have, the data. Now you are clear on the data, and you know about the response set. This particular subject or the person, what responses is going to do. Either he'll sit or stand, sleep or run or climb, so that and when you know about your data and the responses, input and output variable are known, so you know what to apply. That we will be going for a supervised learning. So that's why this machine learning here will be taking the supervised learning. And this train model or the classifier will be integrated into an app, that will be integrated to this app to help us to track the activity level throughout the day. So that will be your application. Hope I am clear to that. Now, another thing, if I will start from the scratch, like that will come into your mind, like step one, what we will do, taking that same example in case like the app that we are talking about, for the same health monitoring app that we are looking into. And so how you will do? So first thing is to load the data. To load the data from the accelerometer and the gyroscope, you need to do like first you have to sit down holding the phone, log data from the phone and store it in the text file, level it, like if it is sitting, then standing, if the somebody is standing, then you have to level the data. So leveled, that we have discussed in the supervised case, we do the leveling of the data leveling. So that what we are doing, whether somebody is sitting, standing, and like that you have to do, and repeat the step until the data for each activity you want to classify, so that you have to do. So we store the level data set in the text file, a flat file format such as like txt or csv is easy to work with and make write forward to import data, like the facilities are there, like if you develop a app also. So the machine learning algorithm, they are not smart enough to tell the difference between the noise and the valuable information before using the data for training, or we need to make sure whether it is clean or complete. So the second step is to pre-process the data. Once you import the data, raw data, what you will do is you look for, first you will look for outlier. So this outlier will be the data that are lie outside the rest of the data. So that is what the outlier data. Here the outlier is mentioned in this way, which are lying outside, because we look for the raw data, the data which is here in, let's say, within this particular range. We want to consider the exact data which to be processed. So the outlier you can remove or you can discard, and then check the missing value. If second thing, for missing values, so in that case, perhaps we lost data because of connection drop during the recording, or kind of loading or something. So that need to be checked. So we could simply ignore the missing value, but this will reduce the size of the data set. Otherwise, or in some case, we could substitute approximation for the missing values by interpolating or using some comparable data from another sample. So that is a different case. I'm not going there. And the second step again, it will continue where we need to remove the gravitational effect from the accelerometer, because we are still taking that example, the F and the health monitoring case. So in that case, again, the gravitational effect of the accelerometer to be removed from the data that we have for the algorithm, and we focus on the movement of the subject, not the movement of the phone. So movement of phone we do not need to be observing that. We need to focus on the movement of the object. A simple high filter, such as uh, can be used for that purpose. And now then what we do, divide the data into two sets. We can say part the data from the setting of the like test set and the training set. So test set, training set, that division we have to do. Sometime we train like 70% of the data that we have, and we take 30% of the same for the test purpose. So that is up to you with what training and what testing, that comparison you have to use. So that is one case. And next is like this derive the feature. Like deriving the feature is one of the most important part of machine learning. It turns raw data into information that a machine learning can use. For activity tracker, we want to extract feature that capture the capture the frequency content of the accelerometer data, and this feature will help the algorithm to distinguish between the walk or the with a low frequency or running. So let's say just walking. So how we are able to know with low frequency data is somewhere able to, and running, that is where with high frequency data. So this algorithm helps to identify or distinguish between the walking and running, and we create new table that includes the selected feature. So now you see the health monitoring app, the phone is with you, or you can club it, or you can mount it with your hand or any part of the body. And when you are doing the physical activity at that time, the idea is to predict your uh, physical activity. And next is like this again, this derived feature, what we can, like a data type, we can have sensor data, you can have image and video data, translation data. The feature selection tasks can be of selection properties from the raw feature, and data creates high level of information. Then technique, this I will be not going, you will be doing a lot of kind of signal peak analysis, pulse transition metrics, spectral measurement, all that are there. So this is where once you jump into your particular data analysis, these few things that can be followed. So this just for information I've kept it, I'm not going into that part. Next, what we have is next step that need to be followed is to build or train the model. So to when we are talking about like to building a model, it's good idea to start with something simple. It will be faster to run or easier to interpret. So we start with basic decision tree in this case, and to see how well it perform if we take this basic decision tree. So each node, actually there has to be a decision to be taken, whether based on the the value or the that we have, it is less than this value, then it will follow this route or this branch. If it is greater than, then it will follow, then subsequently it will do like that. And at the end, what you are getting is see on the physical activity, whether it will standing, sitting, walking, running, and dancing. So all that 1 2 3 4 5. So ultimately it is classifying your five physical activity with the value they have, or a decision that to be made at a particular node based on the a kind of a decision set or a number. So so we can plot the confusion matrix also, a table that compare, this is what we say confusion matrix, and made by made by the model with the actual class level that we created in the first step. And so here you see sitting, standing, and all that true classes, and this is the predicted class. So true class, again, this five activity 1 2 3 4 5, and predicted also we have this five activity. And with that we are able to do how much of actual prediction and classification that is given here. So the confusion matrix shows that our model is having trouble kind of distinguishing between the dancing and running. So somewhere the dancing is there. So yeah, the dancing and it is and running. If you take running, and maybe a decision a tree is not able to do a proper work, doesn't work for this type of data, so we can try with different algorithm. So now we have taken one algorithm, as I said, no form algorithm is for the fit for all models, and we can go for hit and trial method. uh, so this is how we have taken decision tree. We thought of this model can work, but in one case it is not giving us good result, one or two case, then we can think of taking another kind of a. So like in this case, actually dancing and running case also, it is 40% it is coming. So we can think of other models. So that's where also can think. And we can if we start with k nearest neighbor, knn, a simple algorithm that store all the training data, compares with the new point of the training data, and returns most kind of the frequent class of k nearest point, and that gives us 98% accuracy compared to 94.1% for the simple decision tree. So this is how. So in this case, we can say it is much. It is performing better as compared to the earlier case, the earlier model here, and the accuracy is better. And however, this KNN takes a considerable amount of memory to run, and since that require all training data to predict a model, because you are having a huge data, because throughout the day you have to do the kind of prediction kind of a thing. So we try linear discriminant model, but that does not improve the result. Finally, we try with multi-class support vector machine, SVM. And SVM, if we where we go for, where we are getting 99% accuracy. So you see from a decision tree, like then we go for KNN. Now we're talking about SVM. So the accuracy somewhere it is increasing in the process, and now we can able to conclude or able to come up with a conclusion where we say, based on the data that we have, the SVM can give better kind of a result. So that's why we have to make a selection. That again, if somebody is well known to all the algorithm, then only can apply it, and the availability as also can be a factor. So all that need to be taken into consideration. So the fifth step, when we talk about to improve the model, improving a model can take two different directions: to make the model simpler or to make it a complex one. So when we normally go, always we think for will try to have a simplified kind of simplified kind of a thing, or we look for opportunity to reduce the number of feature. So in that process, when feature reduction we talk about, and simplification we talk about. So in that case, we can go for correlation matrix, where that shows relationship between the variables, so that the variable that are not highly correlated can be removed. Whichever is not correlated, you can remove. So in that process, you are reducing the feature. What else you can have is principal component analysis. This is PCA, well-known feature reduction technique. And then we can go for sequential feature reduction, which can reduce the feature or iteratively on the model until there is no improvement in the performance. So in that all we can think for. Again, to improve the model, when we look for the improvement, obviously the complexity, add complexity comes into play. So when if our model cannot differentiate the dancing from the running because it is over generalizing, then we can find ways to make it more fine-tuned. So we can use model combination, like fine-tuning. That's where you are doing the fine-tuning you are doing, and add, what else you can do to add more data sources. So that's what I have talked about earlier also, while defining machine learning towards adaptability. When we're talking about making it learn, the system to learn and to adapt and from the environment, that's where we're more relying towards the data, not the pre-existing algorithm that we have. If with the data, it will look for the scope to learn, and and then it will be more improvised in nature. So that's where, when we do that, somewhere we can lead it to more kind of a complexity, but again, the performance wise, the accuracy wise, it will again improve. So this is about Dr. Kanak. We have time. Should I go further, or is it fine? We have.
So you can take another 5-10 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, sir. Yes.
because I have kept so many things. So applying, let's say just we go for applying the unsupervised learning technique. So in earlier case also we have just discussed about most unsupervised learning technique are from the cluster kind of analysis, and in cluster analysis the data is partitioned into group based on some measures of similarity or shared some kind of characteristic where cluster are formed, so that that object in the same cluster are very similar, and object in the different cluster are have different characteristic or can be distinct. So clustering algorithm fall into mainly you can broadly divide into two group kind of hard clustering, and so where each data point belongs to one kind of a cluster, and soft clustering where each data can belongs to more than one cluster. So hard clustering, when we say let's say this is one cluster, so the data which we are talking about, this data will not belong to another cluster. So but soft cluster, when the same data can belong to different cluster, more than one cluster. So this, if we can use the hard and soft clustering technique, if we already know the possible data, grouping. So in that case, as I was talking earlier, also if we know about the data grouping, then we can go for this hard and soft clustering. So like some common hard clustering, whereas the k-means, where when the data of cluster is known, for fast clustering of the data we can go for a k-mean. So the difference here, k-mean and k-midweights, in a simple way you can see here the cluster center is independent, but where here the cluster center can coincide with the data point, if we see here. So in that way you can remember. Just I'm giving you a brief, just a graphical impression, so that it can help you. And somewhere again this hierarchical clustering, and this is dendrograms that showing the different clustering between the cluster, and the self-organized map. When we talk about, we look for visualizing with 2D or 3D, and to reduce the dimensionality of the data by preserving its topography or the shape. So this is how it will look, the presentation will look. And somewhere again we have this example, like we can take the k-mean clustering on site cell phone tower. We can, like a cell phone company wants to know the number of number and the placement of cell tower that provide the most reliable service for kind of optimal site signal reception. The tower must be located within the cluster of the people. The workflow begins with an initial guess at the number of the cluster that will be needed. To evaluate that guess, the engineers compare the service with the 3 towers and 4 towers to see how they are able to cluster for each kind of a scenario. Somewhere a cell phone can only talk to one tower at a time, so that the hard clustering problem that come into picture. And the team that uses k-mean clustering, because the k-means treats each observation in the data as one of as an object having kind of a location in a space. It finds a partition in which object within each cluster are as close to each other as possible, as far from the object in other kind of a cluster that are possible. So after running the algorithm, the team can accurately determine the result of partitioning the data into 3 or 4 kind of a cluster. So that's where in the cell phone tower it can be, like you can think of. And some common soft clustering algorithm, fuzzy c-means, also you can think of, where like when we can use that fuzzy c-mean when the number of cluster is known. The pattern recognition, about that when the cluster that overlaps. So yeah, here also the overlapping the cluster is possible. And the Gaussian mixture model, when the data point might belong to more than one cluster. and when the data clusters that have different size and the correlation within them. So this a new model of this Gaussian distribution have that gives possibilities of a point being in a cluster. So this is the graphical presentation which can stimulate your mind. And example under the Siemens, the gene expression we can take to analyze the gene expression data. In this is a team of kind of biologists in analyzing gene expression data from microarrays to understand the genes involved in normal and abnormal cell division kind of a thing. In that process, also can take that Siemens the fuzzy Siemens clustering, one real-time application. Then with dimensional reduction, when there is the term that might be coming somewhere, when we talk about multi-channel like EEG, where brain-related signal if we are acquiring, here also there will be different channel of the signal. So this is a multi-dimensional matrix that signal will be, because when we work with MATLAB or Python or let's say other signal with one dimensional, it easy to operate either with a single column or a single row that we can take. But where we have multiple rows and column, the data for representing a particular case or representing a particular action, like the brain activity. So in that case, somewhere the data reduction technique has to come into play, so that the complexity will reduce or the handling of the data will be easier for kind of prediction or kind of decision making, or let's say kind of any kind of application of the algorithm that we have. So that is one case. Uh, I normally work with EEG signal. We do dimensional reduction here for in case of feature extraction and then training of the data. So that is one case. So these are few commonly or common dimensional reduction technique: the PCA, factor analysis, non-negative matrix factorization. So normally we select them for dimensional reduction, and it is like an intermediate technique where with the feature that we have there, we can apply the dimensional reduction, and the further analysis that will be in a kind of smoother or easy manner we can perform. Principal components that we have discussed. So this is where you can if you have lot of data, and we're talking about unsupervised learning, so where data clustering or let's say lower dimensional data than feature selection, supervised learning, and the model that we're talking about. So in we look for closer to the hard and soft clustering algorithm for in case of this unsupervised learning. And in that case, this unsupervised learning might be uh, if we take an example, if we are doing a market research and want to segment consumer group to target based on website behavior, the clustering algorithm will almost certainly give us the result that we are looking for. So now you can differentiate where you can use the supervised and where you can go for the unsupervised. So when we are talking about this marketing kind of a thing, and kind of the data behavior, that we're going for the here. On the other hand, we might want to use the unsupervised learning as a pre-processing step for the supervised. So you see, supervised learning that you are going to apply, but you are applying this unsupervised learning as a pre-processing approach and or step. For example, apply clustering technique to derive a smaller number of features. and then use those feature as the input to the a classifier. So basically you are deriving features selection kind of a thing you are doing here with the unsupervised, and this feature now you are using in a classification problem. So when we are talking about a classification problem, we are talking about a supervised learning. So that is also possible, like hybridization approach, and that mostly in a lot of cases that are coming up. So that is where the need and demand and the application you can do. So Dr. Kanak, we can close here, or should I go further?
Yes, sir. Actually, we have already extended. We have already taken the
Yes.
break also, tea break also. So
Okay.
anyhow, I hope that since these sessions are online, so perhaps the participants can forego the tea sessions. Uh, anyhow, Dr. Bhoi, it was a wonderful session. Thank you for agreeing to be part of this workshop. And I know that you are keeping a busy schedule, but still you consented to be a part of this workshop. And the basics of the or the foundation of the machine learning that you dealt with in this particular session, I am sure it will be of great importance to all the attendees here. They can draw from your experience, and they will be able to transfer this knowledge into their actual area of research as well as in their application area. Thank you once again, Dr. Bhoi.